You're welcome to this session of the LAMAD Africa Community, the last session for the year, and it's a very important session. Why is it important? It's very important because some of the things we're going to be talking about now would almost seem prophetic because it's what a lot of people will begin to deal with 2026 all the way to 2030. And so, whatever you're doing now, it is not as important as the discussion we're going to be having right about now. So, please put them aside, dedicate this next 2 hours as you really go dive into, you know, what the saving grace might be for you, in the next 4 years. Starting first, there's something I've always said for people who have listened to me for a while. It's a parable. And the parable is this: the big green tree has fallen. It fell down upon a slope and then it turned to coins. And today I will be demystifying that parable to you, and so you'd understand what it really means and how to position yourself strategically for it. It reminds me of a time in Jesus's time when the disciples came to him that, why do you speak in parables to the people and you tell us, you open things up to us? And that's what leverage does. Sometimes people in public feel or think that they need to know certain things or they're prepared to know certain things, but it's most of the time very far from the truth. Okay. It is people who have been schooled. It is people who have been discipled. It is people who have followed through a chain of thought. They're the ones who are in a better position to actually be ready for what is coming. So let's talk about Nigeria and what the future holds for Nigeria. Okay, so Nigeria is in an economic reset. It is not in a temporary downturn. Do not be led to believe that what is currently happening is temporary in the sense that things are going to go back to normal. They're not. The dollar is not going back to normal. The pound is not going back to normal. The market is not going back to normal. You need to understand what this means. And so the goal is not for you to continue to look back. The goal is for you to what? Go on forward. So understand this, we're in an economic reset. And so what you need to begin to think about is, what is an economic reset? What do you do during the times of an economic reset? Okay, so that's what you need to begin to think about. So we begin to see certain qualities such as rising costs, instability in income, a lot of people losing their jobs, lots of pressure is coming upon businesses. Businesses are not making money as much as they used to because the areas and the supply chain and the supply route is being affected. Policies are coming, taxation is coming, and a whole lot of things are coming. Okay. And so what this session is going to help you with is to give you a sense of clarity and then practical actions of what to do. So what is the central question? The central question is, what do you do when the economy changes faster than your plans? There are many people who will make plans in 2026, but what they would not realize is that the changes that would happen in the economy will happen faster than their plan. And what that happens is when you are pushed away by the floods. Okay. And so in that situation, what is going to be the response of people? Is it going to be panic? Are they just going to freeze? Are they going to begin to hustle blindly? Or they will begin to respond strategically. Okay, so for every LAMAD Africa community member, the important thing for you is to learn how to respond what? Strategically. All right, so there are three frameworks. And first and foremost, when I begin to mention this framework, you would let me know if this clearly defines you or not. Then when you know where you are, then you know what the next step should be. Okay. So there are three basics framework. Number one is to stabilize. Number two is to strengthen. And number three is to scale. Now, when we talk about stabilizing, it means that the boat is sinking. There are already holes in the boat. What can you do to stop the waters from coming in? You are currently bleeding. What can you do to stop the bleeding? That is stabilize. There's a lot of external pressure coming in, internal pressure coming out. What do you do to create an equilibrium? Okay, so that is stabilize. The second thing is to strengthen, and that is to build a sense of resilience to tackle the situation, to have some sort of fortitude. And the third one is to scale, and that is when you now begin to grow with wisdom. Okay, so first thing first, you need to understand the economic reset. And what you get to understand from that is that structural reforms are shaping costs and income. Every organization has had things affecting their costs and then the income. Either they now have to incur more costs or they make less income, or a combination of both. Okay, so it's important to note that the old playbooks no longer apply. Adaptation is now a necessity. Okay, adaptation is mandatory. It is not, there are no two ways about it. You either choose the path of adaptation or you sink, or you get totally annihilated. Okay, so what are some of the common mistakes that people make in this? Is number one, they scale too early. You hear a lot of people talk about artificial intelligence, AI, and everybody thinks that they're supposed to go right into AI. Some people are going to scale too early, and that's going to lead to their downfall. The other mistake is ignoring cash flow realities. You know, there are many people who, you've heard this thing that investment is the way, investment is the way. Yes, investment is important, but in this season, cash flow is more important. I'm going to tell you what the ratio is towards the end of the session. So the ratio of your cash flow liquidity to the ratio of your investment, that would help you to be balanced. Okay. The third thing is waiting for the normal to return. I've said this before, the normal is not coming back. So you cannot begin to plan that things are going to stabilize. You cannot begin to plan that the economy is going to get better. You cannot begin to plan that, everything will go back to the way it used to be before. No, 1,000 times no. Okay. So let's go to the first phase. We're talking about stabilize. What does stabilization mean? In simple terms, stabilization talks about control, not fear, control. Stabilization also means liquidity first, ambitions later. Okay? Clarity before growth. You need to be clear on what the realities of the current situation is. Then you need to mitigate against those realities before you plan ahead. If you seek to plan ahead without thinking about the current realities, you're going to become those who were mentioned in the Bible as the foolish virgins. Okay? They did not really understand the data of what is on ground and then plan effectively for it. And that's what you're going to see in the first 2 months of 2026. Because of what will begin to happen, a lot of people will begin to create surface level strategies and approaches to navigate. One of them that I've heard online currently is where they tell you that in order to walk around the taxing issue that will come in 2026, that you need to become more intentional about what do they call those things? Like the remarks, the captions, like when you make a payment, you write the narrations. That is a surface level. That cannot go far for a lot of people who are thinking strategically. So if you are thinking in that way, I'm sorry, you are part of the foolish virgins. I need to be factual here because we are here. We are LAMAD Africa. We need to begin to think strategically. Our decisions are supposed to be strategic, and we cannot be making decisions just like everybody in the masses. It's the reason why we're having this session. The purpose of this session is for you to understand what is at stake, find out if you are actually going to sink or you're actually going to swim. It's not about motivation. It's not about saying it. What do you have? What resources, what structure, what system do you have in place? And how can you use that to galvanize your process and your progress? Okay. So liquidity first, ambitions later. You might be thinking big dreams. AI is going to crush a lot of big dreams in 2026. I'm telling you. The economic situation, social, political situations will crush a lot of goals and ambitions. And to understand this, liquidity first before ambition, clarity before growth. Okay? Now, one of the things you have to understand as you begin to plan is whether is it a matter of cash flow or it's a matter of profit. Okay? Now, profit is accounting. What that means is that in order for you to survive, you need cash flow. Make sure you are able to do something that creates a cycle of money for you. And also, timing actually matters more than totals. It is about the timing. It's like investment. The time you enter into the market can make the whole lot of difference. So, excuse me, once you understand what the economy is saying and you're able to time yourself, you might actually your timing should be more focused towards um, profitability and cash flow. Okay. Now, when we're talking about stabilization, what should be the priorities for you? I'm doing this because we've got lots of things to talk about, and you also have a lot of questions, and so I just want to rush into this first, and then we'd have time to discuss. So, you have to protect cash. All right. Number one, cut non-essential costs. Number two, if you have certain obligations, renegotiate them. It's very key. Your life is at stake, your finances is at stake. Number three, secure core income. Okay, we'll talk more about that. So, what are some of the first things that you need to begin to do when it comes to your stabilization plan? Number one, immediately reduce expenses. Look at I just you're in LAMAD Africa, so you know what the path of financial wealth is. You must be able to understand what your average monthly expense should be. Reduce that. Whatever you can do, reduce that. As you are listening to me right now, reduce your monthly expense. Now, you need to find out what your key income streams are. You need to protect them. Do not lose income streams for whatever reason in this season. Okay? Then you also need to control your major risks. You all know them. What are some of the things that put you in a risky or precarious situation? Situations where you do not have much money, you do not have much leverage. You have to control all of that. Now, I'm giving us the skeletal approach. Now, when we move away from that stabilization point and we have mastered it, we're going into the strengthening phase. Okay, so for the strengthening phase, it's about resilience. Resilience helps you to reduce vulnerabilities because you are able to build options and flexibility. Okay, and this is what allows you to move from a point of survival to a point of stability. You need options. You cannot have one stream of income. You cannot depend on one income stream. You cannot just have one major job. You cannot have just one major client. You cannot have one market increase. All of these things, they increase your risk. One job, one client, one market. No. Optionality is resilience. You need to have options. So I remember I was, as myself and my wife were planning for 2026. And one of the things we talked about is that we must have not less than 4 streams of income in 2026 because optionality is resilience. Because if you put all your eggs in one basket and something happens to the economy and that particular thing with all your prayers and fasting gets wiped away, that's all for you. Okay? So ensure you're able to walk well around this. Now, so one of the things you need to do is to put into perspective your income and your skills, how diverse they are. Okay. So you need to do what you call skill stacking, especially if you're a professional. Um, Begin to look for new revenue lines if you're an SME. Leverage on digital and export opportunities if possible. Read wide. What are the current problems the world is going through? What are the current skills? Have you learned about artificial intelligence? Are you good with artificial intelligence? Do you know how artificial agents work? Do you understand the disruption AI is bringing into your industry, into your skill set, into your competence? All right. As a professional and as a business person, you need to begin to think this way. So diversify your income, diversify your skills. Now, you also need to find out if your skill is in demand. Okay. And does your skill increase your earning power? Or is this something that can scale your impact or your income? Like I said, strategically position ourselves for 2026 is to enable us to think the way every other person is currently not thinking. People are currently thinking about dirty December and all. You're thinking about 2030, not just 2026. Okay, you must be steps ahead of the majority. Now, one other thing you also need to understand in order to stabilize, and build resilience is partnerships. And I've always been a proponent of this. Relationship is key. Build strategic relationship. Have shared infrastructure. Buy things in bulk with groups of people. All of this actually help you. It reduces your costs. It gives you access to the market. It also gives you credibility as a leverage. Okay, partnership is key. Don't do things alone in the sea. Don't be a lone ranger. Don't be a lone wolf. Don't be the alpha and the omega. No, partner with people. Reduce the risk only you have to bear. Because a lot of risky situations are actually going to happen. So you have to learn how to mitigate that. Okay. You also need to have compliance as a protection. What that means is that the cleaner your records are, the less risks you have. And one of the things you need to understand, especially if you're in Nigeria, the government is coming for everybody. If you do not have clean records, you're going to be in trouble. Okay? Because it's not just the Nigerian government that is doing this, it's in partnership with France. And those guys know their onions. Okay? So optimize taxation legally, which is one of the things I'm also going to talk about. With all the issues with taxation that is coming, that we've been hearing, there is actually a way out of this, a legal way. Everybody will still have to pay tax, but how do you ensure that you're not paying more than necessary? Okay, so I'm going to be sharing that with us also. You also need to learn to create structure that gives you peace of mind. You're not running helter-skelter. You know where what you're looking for is. Okay, that's what gives you a bit of structure. So that is very key for you to have a bit of resilience and stability as we're going forward. The third thing is now for people who wish to scale. That means you've gotten to a place you already have the resilience, you have structure, the system is working for you. How can you scale? One of the best times to scale is when there is hardship, because you will make flipping money. All right. So I'm going to share that with us as well. Now, scaling requires timing. Scaling also requires capacity. Okay. There's a right time to scale, and you need to have a capacity to launch from as you scale. Okay. Because growth without structure leads to collapse. Many people who collapse have great ideas, but reality has not yet set on them. They thought they had what they did not have. And so when they launched, they realized, oh, I don't have the power, I don't have the resolve, I don't have the capacity, I don't have the resistance, I don't have the mitigation of risk to carry this thing. And so everything falls apart. And many people who are trying to scale, if they fall, the fall is usually very great. And it can be very difficult for many of them to come out of it, because they lose a lot of time, they lose a lot of money, they lose credibility, they lose a lot of things. Okay, so that's very key. Now, not everybody can scale, not everybody will scale. However, if you believe that you are in that season where it's time for you to scale, what are some of the things you need to have, like a prerequisite? Okay, so what are the signs that you're actually ready to scale? Number one, You must have stable cash flow. That's one of the first things you need to have. And it must have been stable for 6 to 8 months. Okay? 1 to 3 years, 5 to 10 years, depending on the magnitude of what you want to scale. And one of the things that allows the stability of your cash flow is you have repeatable systems. So things you can reproduce. There is a clear demand. That means you are actually in demand. People are looking for what you offer or what you sell. Okay, so that will guarantee continuous cash flow for you. And then you actually have the leadership capacity to actually scale. Many people have the structure to scale, but they don't have the leadership capacity to scale. So look at yourself. You might have the structure, but are you the kind of person that has the capacity within them to actually be reproduced, and to scale? That is very key. So what are some of the options if you're trying to scale? There are export-facing services. So you can leverage on foreign exchange opportunities to earn in FX. That can be very good for you. And one other thing that can help you in scaling is automation, and you're able to digitize your systems and processes. It makes it very easy for you to reproduce. And also brand, and you upgrade your brand, and you also upgrade what's called governance, like corporate governance. And that is why if you are not yet thinking like a business, if you are still thinking like a freelancer, forget scaling. Scaling is not for you. You must have the structure in place before you can begin to scale. All right. Scaling is not just a good option. It must be well thought out. Okay. You must look at the pros and the cons and ensure that you have all that it takes. What is the cost of scaling too early? Like I mentioned earlier, that some people go out too early. There's a burnout. They'll begin to have debt overload. There's, like I mentioned earlier, their reputation becomes damaged, and then their business fails. Now, in order to scale, one of the things you also need is, it is difficult for you to scale if you don't have a community. That's why it says not everybody can scale. Do you have a community? From that community, are you able to create demand? Do you have structure? Do you have the leadership competence to actually successfully execute these things? It's very key. Okay. You must see community as capital. Why? Networks reduce isolation. So you are able to leverage on shared knowledge and access. And then there's a way community actually fills your system gaps. And that is why community is key. There is nobody who is making money in this season that is a lone ranger. They are leveraging on community or a system that works for them. Okay. Also, your decision making will be put under pressure. So are you going to work in fear, or you're going to work in wisdom? So are you leveraging on speed or discernment? Are you looking at opportunities, or you're looking at distractions? Okay. Tick your boxes and know where you belong, and then we can move on from there. There is a role that faith plays in all of this. Okay. When you're a person or a business of integrity, it sustains longevity. Obedience preserves supply, and then shortcuts create future pain. Don't try to take shortcuts. Go through the process, build the capacity, have the structure, have the system, have the competence, and then things can become easy for you. What's going to be your action map? So going forward, what are you going to do? One of the things you need to understand is you have to have one core action for stabilization. Okay. So what is that investment what is that thing you invest in that would strengthen you? Okay. What is that one scaling decision to either prepare or to delay? Start with one step. Don't rush. Don't rush. Start with one step and then begin to take it one step at a time. Ensure you have built capacity, you take one step. Master, get data, leverage, wisdom, principles, mastery, then you take the step again. That's how to go in the season. Okay. One of the things this season will do for you is it will review your structure. Okay. You need to learn to stabilize early quickly, strengthen wisely, and then scale patiently. Okay, I have a lot of things to talk about, but I want to take questions now. Any questions you have, throw it at me. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's map out how 2026 is going to be. I would also give you the blueprint, the playbook. What are some of the things you should expect to happen in the first quarter of 2026, second quarter, third quarter, last quarter? How do you manage your finances? How do you manage your relationships? How do you manage your business? What are some of the things to put as priority? Socio-economic decisions. There's going to be a lot of geopolitics that would affect businesses. What are some of those speculations? Investment opportunities, tokenizations. All of these are very key. And after the series of questions, then in that conclusion, I would now begin to share what I believe most of you should go into in order to have a much better 2026, even a more prospective 2030. All right, so let's have the questions and let's get started.